Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to another Sunday of When Black Women Gather. We are on this call today just to have I call it a potpourri conversation. Calling it Sistah Talk. And we're going to talk about various subjects that I pointed out, but obviously if there are things of interest to you all, let's talk about that too. The things that I sent on the email that I sent out to everybody or put on Facebook, I'm not sure where you heard about this. We're talking about this Florida's decision to dismantle Black history and say that somehow slavery was beneficial to us. Then we can talk about affirmative action and what that means to us, the reversal, not even reversal, the dismantling of that at the Supreme Court level. Respectability politics, what is that, right? And how does it affect us? And hopefully some of our young people will be on here to talk to us about what that means. And then the whole Carlee Russell debacle and how that affects us as a community. There are 89,000 missing Black women, 98,000 Black women and children. And here we have this situation with her. And then we'll talk about this whole thing with the Barbie movie. I had no idea what that was all about. So it's a small group today, so we can just like unmute and talk like a conversation. I don't want to carry everything, but I will share with you. I tried to pull up some interesting links so that we can talk about things. You guys can have a visual as we're talking, so you'll know what we're talking about. There's Sheridan. I see you up there. I was just asking Sheridan just got back from Egypt, so yeah, perhaps she'll share that experience with us as well. So we got two world travelers here this week. Sheridan in Egypt and Jennifer and I don't see Miss Tillman because Miss Tillman is traveling somewhere interesting. So Gloria, where is she? I didn't understand that country. Where is she traveling to this week? Gloria? Okay, Gloria can't hear me. All right, so go ahead. Gloria, do you know where Diane is this week?
Helen?
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Where is she traveling this week, Diane?
Diane is over in Germany, did she say? Or she was
Somewhere.
just flying through Germany. I can't keep up with her.
Yeah, I didn't recognize the name of the place that she said she was going. So anyway, so we're going to start out first of all talking about the dismantling of Black history here in Florida. I'm sure that you all heard that the Board of Education here decided somehow that when teachers give instruction going forward about Black history here in this state, that they will talk about it from a perspective of slavery having been beneficial to us. And that, we learned skills that we didn't otherwise have. And I guess, but for the wonders of slavery, we'd still be hanging, running from animals in Africa. I have no idea. I mean, we do know what they're trying to say here. So does anybody have any immediate thoughts on that? I'll share with you a link that came, a link that they put out that I read the first morning that this all came out. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? I'm sure you had to be outraged when you heard it.
I felt that they were lost their cotton picking mind when they brought that up. I said, who's going to believe in that story?
Right.
Based on our history of us developing ourselves and growing in our knowledge and contributing to this United States. I said they would have to look some other way of learning their history is from the family, from getting books that's been banned. I remember I used to get books from Tree of Life in New York to learn about our history, and then have a professor taught us about Black history, because when my history in high school was only, I just thought we stayed over the Mississippi line. I never knew we went over until I saw Buck and the Preacher. So that's how limited my history was.
Wow.
And I'm talking about graduating in high school in 1968.
Wow.
And I learned about my history from other people and doing my own diligent reading.
And that's how they would like to keep it, so that we don't know what what's really happening. Remember, I think we need to go all the way back to the days of slavery when, it was a crime to teach Black people how to read.
Yep.
And that's where we're trying. I put in the chats there for those of you, the article that came out here. And it has a video in it. It also has a copy of the actual, the bill that they actually passed, the language that's in the bill that talks about how to teach it to be instructional. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that whole situation? And what do you think? What do you all? I have some ideas about what I think the response should be as a community. Does anybody else have any ideas that you want to share?
I just say that we actually ought to be up in arms about all of this, because so Florida is doing that. I think last year Texas was talking about involuntary relocation. Slavery was involuntary relocation, and I'm sure other states, if they haven't already done similar things, are about to. And it's one of those things where people say, okay, well, it's Florida, let Florida take care of that. But it's stuff that's, it's a mess. What is it? What do you call it? When you have metastasizing across the country. I think we all have to stand up against it.
Yeah, what I would like to see, and Donna, I don't know if your friend is on here, but Donna can talk about the freedom schools, and we had freedom schools way back when. I would like to see across the nation.
I did invite our local ASALH president to come on and listen. She said she wanted to get to know the group and the format and everything, but we had a 10-week freedom school initiated by the National ASALH. That's the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, started by Carter G. Woodson back in the early 1900s. So we're a local group. We have several here in Florida, one in Sarasota, St. Pete, and Tampa, here on the west coast of the state. And it was very successful. In fact, we were going to have our closing ceremony this Thursday. We had about 15 participants, invited up to 25, but she has agreed to come on and talk about it. And Kelthia told me that there was an ASALH group in Trenton, but any church, sorority, fraternity, anyone can sponsor one of these freedom schools, as like the Jewish schools back in, they have on Saturday schools for Jewish kids. I associated with that type of program. Sarasota did theirs first and during the school year, and we did ours during the summer. So I think it would be worthwhile for, I know we're a big group, we're all over the country and some even international, where African-American kids, we even had a couple of Caucasian kids in our group whose parents were adamant about them learning the history of all levels. So I think it's a good opportunity for anyone, and I hope that she will agree to come on with a couple of other of our members who assisted her and gave presentations during this past summer. So we just need to get some feedback from Helen as to what would be a good time to do that.
Yeah, so my immediate thought when this happened, and of course I'm living in Florida, my immediate thought was that as a community, nationwide, Black people, all of our organizations, our churches, everybody should be on the same bandwagon, pushing to promote, we don't need other people's permission to celebrate who we are and study our history. So we should, as much as they're trying to erase our history, we should be teaching our history, whether it's in churches or schools or after school programs. We could be hosting community viewings of different films and things of that nature where we gather and then have discussions going. So as much as they don't want to teach our history, we should be teaching it. As much as they want to distort our history, we should be teaching it with the same amount of fervor. And there's just no reason that we can't do that. We don't need anybody else's permission to do that. And so I think the idea of the Freedom School falls in line with it. But even if we don't have funding or whatever, we all have a community center where we can, gather, and we can, even if we don't have enough books, we can just get people talking and interested in Black history, because there's a reason that they don't want us to know our history. So does anybody have any thoughts on that and what it would look like? Go ahead, Donna. You can just talk.
May I add that we had several parents who were stayed with the group to learn also. So as adults, I know of my formal education in elementary, middle, and high school, I didn't learn any of this. It was college on my own that I had this kind of experience. So we had parents that stayed in and wanted to learn this history as well. So adults are just as needy.
I would envision that you have programs where parental participation is mandatory. Like, we got your kid for after school program, we got your kid for Saturday mornings, but at least once a month, we need you to come and partake and be a part of this process. And we're going to do this, free of charge or whatever. And I remember when we had Sonia Sanchez, I tried to get her for today, but she's got a lot going on. But, she and I talked about it. And I remember when we had her on here, maybe last year or the year before, I can't believe it just runs by, I can't remember. But I remember her saying that, there were so many students who wanted to take her class, because remember, she talked about having to sell Black history even to the Black community to want to be interested in learning. And then once it caught fire, then everybody wanted to be at her class. But she recognized that, everybody can't afford to go to college. So on her own time, she gave back to the community, and she held Saturday classes for the community. And that has just never left me. That's something that we can all be doing. Small groups, large groups, grown-up groups, children's groups, whatever. I mean, I just think once people catch the fire and start, studying and getting to learn, that I think that, maybe I'm delusional, but I just have.
No, you're not delusional. This is Michelle. I had the same thought. And you know how many times I'm like, I'm going to do a PowerPoint, because the only restriction with me is obviously I'd have to have the government approve it, because I work for the government. But I'm like, if I'm just, I've long ago, and you all clearly talking have put it back in my brain that, oh yeah, this thing you keep pushing off. I was going to reach out to the community college and Bowie State, because I figured, well, Bowie State would at least say yes. I would gladly give up my time to teach, civil rights stuff, basically, that I didn't learn until law school, not even undergrad. But the basics, like, everybody wants to act like it stopped with the Civil War, ended in 1865. I would love to say, okay, well, let's talk about, as we learned them in law school, the 14th, 15th, and 16th. Collectively, they're known as, I'm driving, so I'm trying to do too many things at once. But they're what do they call them? They're not the Restoration Amendments. What do they call those three amendments?
Girl, don't get me lying.
The three of them have those three amendments have a name that they're known by. And something another amendments. All three of them collectively are known that way. And so you would start with that. Obviously, you would talk about Dred Scott. You would talk about, then you would come forward. You would throw in a case or two about the Native Americans, because I know you recall, those of you who've been to law school, that they had wore out on the Native Americans too. There are many treaties. And there was one case specifically that always stuck out with me from law school, where the Supreme Court, even though the Native Americans said, hey, they signed this treaty with me, this is my land, blah, blah, blah. By the time they went to the Supreme Court, they was able to get the court to say, well, you a savage, you don't know what you agreed to, so we're gonna go ahead and null and void this contract. So they've always, so this idea of a rogue crazy court is not the first time it's been around. It's just, they're always gonna look out for the white man. And basically you come forward and then you.
Did we lose you? Michelle? I think we lost her. She'll come back. So I put in the chats that the 13th, 14th, and 15th amendments are the Reconstruction.
Did it really in 1865?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Now we can hear you. We couldn't hear you, Michelle.
Sorry, I'm moving about. I was like, you know, a lot of times, too often, I want people get hit with well, slavery ended in 1865. And I think if people had the correct tools to reply, to basically say, well, the systemic effects of it continued. I mean, if you go to Brown, which is in 54, then we know that it took 10 years later for the Civil Rights Act, which did not give you relief. So even if you were to say, hey, I got discriminated against in housing, at a job, at wherever, public places, because that's all the Civil Rights Act covered, but I couldn't get relief. You couldn't get relief until the Civil Rights Act was amended until 1990. So when people were trying to say, well, it ended in 1865, what you still bothered for? No, it went on until 1990. Then you want to talk about the Fair Housing Act. What's the best example of that is the Fair Housing Act would be the family with the, and there's a really good video I always point to people on, Levittown. And many communities have a Levittown because this Jewish builder, who's known as the father of suburbia, which Trump also talks about, that was his dad and Trump were in that same genre. Trump's daddy tried to keep up with this guy. Even though he was Jewish, his deeds used to preclude Jews from buying because white people want, I know, and believe it or not, you know who told me that? A white colleague at work. A white man at work. He was like, because I'm like, wow. He says that his conscience, you know how he used to deal with his conscience? He would donate money to the synagogue. But he didn't sell to them. He didn't sell to them. Imagine that. But if you give those examples, because what I realized when I thought it was just the Levittown and PA. No, they're by many names. Oh, you can probably find Levitt communities built in Florida.
Absolutely.
They're all over the place. And to me, those are the easiest examples to point out money. Because if, you know, a white person's grandfather was able to get their Cape Cod or their starter home after World War II from a Levittown community for 20 grand, and then a Black family could not buy until the night after the Civil Rights, the Fair Housing Act was passed in 1967, and you know they revolted. They gave that family hell up in Pennsylvania. So if you couldn't buy until 1970,
even Black soldiers,
that's what was dedicated to was Black soldiers, because you had your VA certificate.
The other thing I think we need to be conscious of that we just let pass. Black people in this country still don't have a permanent right to vote, which is incredible.
Yes, it's true.
Incredible, y'all. How many, and even with the Democratic administrations that we've had, you mean not one of them coming through?
I know.
So when white folks, when you have people like, what's his face, the Satan trying to dismantle, you know, there's an attack on civil rights, period. So when you have that happening, we're vulnerable in so many ways. So people who are coming into this country who are being sworn in as citizens, they have a guaranteed right to vote. We don't. What does that say? Yeah, that's amazing.
So much, I don't know if you saw, did you see what I posted? That was actually posted by a Black woman. That statement
look, I'm in Florida. They found some Negroes to bring forward.
Reconstruction. Thank you.
Yeah, we found Negroes who have come forward who have said, you know, that they were so happy that they were able to be enslaved here because what if, which is just incredible. Incredible.
I couldn't believe a Black woman said that. I said, wow.
Well, she's not the only one. She's not the only one.
No, but what do you think that Tim Scott and the other Black Republican guy from Florida, the one who's in the one who's on the House, imagine now they're jumping on them because they came out and spoke out against it.
Yeah, Tim has tried to say something in defense of it, but you know, it's kind of too little.
No, not in defense of it. He tried to say, DeSantis, you wrong. And now DeSantis and his minions are jumping on them like that. But DeSantis thinks he's slick. He's only singling out Kamala and saying she lied on him. It's like, why you won't go after the two Black male Republicans though?
So, you know, anybody else have any thoughts on that? And did anybody, you guys heard about the Alphas? I'm so impressed with them. Alpha Phi Alpha decided not to have their convention here. They took it out of Florida.
Yes, so, kudos to them.
Absolutely.
I wanted to say a couple things. One is that I think for African Americans as well, we need to to make sure that to know that our history did not begin with slavery, that we had a history in Africa before we came here. So it's important to expand that history, that we had the Ghana and the Songhai and the Mali empires and all those kinds of, and if we keep starting everything with slavery, we're going to forget that we had a great history before we got to this country and before we got to the diaspora. So that's one thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is that my church, I'm Episcopalian, and my church is 90% white in Delaware. And so for 2 years, this woman who's a white woman, she'd had a transformation. She had a transformation, and she decided to do history. And she teaches a 6-week course, and she started with 1619, and she comes all the way to today. And she's done a really good job. And so I offered to my church because I think a white church will listen to a white woman. And so I offered it for 2 years. Every January, February, I offer it. And we've had like 45 to 50 people participate every year. And she does an extremely good job of doing the history all the way, as much as she can cram into 6 weeks. So we're doing that. And the last thing I want to say is I had the pleasure last week of meeting Miss Hilda Beulah. Does Beulah sound familiar to anybody? The word, the last name Beulah.
No.
Well, if you think back, you attorneys, Beulah versus Gebhardt. Remember that? That was the first case that was held in Delaware, argued by Lewis Redding.
Okay.
To integrate schools in Delaware. And it was that, and he won that case, and Delaware was the first state in the country to integrate formally, legally integrated schools in 1952. It was the success of the Beulah versus Gebhardt. Gebhardt was a Delaware Board of Education. And it was that case that Thurgood Marshall and the group took and combined that for the Brown versus Board of Education case, Topeka versus Kansas. And so that came in 2 years later in 1954. I had the pleasure of meeting Miss Hilda Beulah. Wow. She was 100 years old last week.
Wow.
And I met her, and I have a picture with her. I can't believe it. She's very fluid. She's fluid. Stop it, Marcy. She's fluid in her mind. She's very, I mean, I was like living history. It was amazing. And she's still alive. And the Hocassin Colored School, this is where I live, is like 2 blocks from me. Wow. And that's where the DuPont built this schools. Like he built like 80-something schools in the state of Delaware because Blacks could not go to white schools. And so he would name them by the numbers, one school 107C for colored. And I got a chance to meet some of the children, the grown people, they're old now, who were children in the school. They've taken the school and renovated it, and now it's like a little community center with history to tell the history of desegregation in the state of Delaware. Wow. So I just wanted to share that. I was so excited to meet a member of the Beulah. It was her sister that her mother sued the Board of Education because she couldn't go to school, and she's the last living member of the Beulah family, and she's 100 years old.
Wow, that's
beautiful.
Amazing.
And on that note, you all heard recently that the judge, I'm sure she's a Trumpster. She has 3 people. I think Michelle pointed out to me that she has 3 people on her LinkedIn page, and one of them is Trump. But the judge in Tulsa, Oklahoma, threw out the case for the 3 last survivors of the Tulsa massacre. And I'm sure they're trying to run out the clock, hoping that,
of course,
hoping that these women will pass away before they have to deal with it. But, you know, when we talk about the difference in the parties, the Republican Party is very deliberate in their actions, and they have never stopped fighting the Civil War, and they've been stacking the courts. So the federal courts, the federal court, and obviously the United States Supreme Court we're screwed for quite a while. But anyway, so I'm sure you all heard that, right? That the case was thrown out?
No, I didn't hear it.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I think, I don't know, what was it, Michelle? Did she say they didn't have standing? I can't remember on what basis. But she dragged them
I
along.
don't think it was was it standing? It was some silly reason. I think you might be right. But we all know, like you said, it's because she know they're 100 and she's like, but it's just even Oklahoma, the school board there, the superintendent came out and said, you could talk about that incident, but you can't mention race. How would anybody teach that truthfully? Like, why else did they burn down the city?
And all the people looked alike. Yeah, come on.
You know, but for race, whatever. And we all know that, but for, then
Exactly.
why did they do it? But I mean, we're in some really, really interesting times. And to me, you know, DeSantis is running for president. I don't think he'll win because for whatever reason, these people they'll still pick 45 as their dear leader. But it should very much concern all of us that someone with those ideas could run for the highest. I mean, because what would he do at that level, at the presidential level?
Well, he said, he was going to make America, make America. I guess, but he's going to make Florida like America. I forget. He's going to make America.
Yeah.
I think he said make America Florida. That's his plan.
Imagine that.
Yeah. So we can't underestimate him. But anyway, I'm leaving in the chat this. Does anybody on here listen to Greg Carr and Karen Hunter on Saturday mornings when they do In Class with Dr. Carr? Does anybody listen to that? Judy, I think you do, don't you?
This Judy, every once in a while, yes.
Yeah. So I'm leaving in the chats for you all their class from last week where they talked about at the 1 hour and 30-minute mark. I want you to go in and listen because he actually talks about I'm sorry, I'm trying to talk to you guys and type at the same time. Let me do one thing at a time. He actually talks about how the bill, no matter how it's written, there's, we need to interpret it differently. And as, teachers and what have you, teach it in such a way that, you can flip the script on the way that they're trying to make it sound. He said they gave us that headline because, of course, it causes hysteria. It gets us all up in arms. They know how to push our buttons. They know how to keep us distracted. And we fall for it every time. But I'm going to put this in the link. Check it out and go to the 1 hour and 30-minute mark, and you'll see what he suggests that we can do. So on that note, let's transition over to talk about this whole thing with affirmative action. As you know, in June, there was an all-out. There's an all-out attack on Black folks. Civil rights in this country and any strides that were made by Black Americans specifically. We know this. So, they've gotten rid of abortion. They have dismantled affirmative action. And what do you guys think is next? What's next on the chopping block? Anybody got any guesses? No?
Well, voting they've already kind of come for, but
Same-sex marriage, girls. Same-sex, I believe. Same-sex marriage.
But I guess I was thinking in terms of things that would directly
that affect Black folks.
Black people, because they're certainly trying.
Yeah. So basically, what they said is that the court ruled that you can no longer use race. Race can no longer be considered in college admissions. They say no more race-conscious admissions. And believe it or not, I don't know if you all know, this suit was bought by, let me say the face of the suit was an Asian student.
Yep.
And he was claiming that he couldn't get into Harvard and some other Ivy Leagues. And instead of dealing with the 77% of, feeling that maybe he didn't get in because they're giving 77% of their seats to legacy students, instead he focused on the 10% Black students who are there. And he, decided that, he's a better student and he didn't get in because of them. So, and that takes me to this whole thing when we start talking about people of color, right? Because the next day, these same people will say that I'm a person of color and I've been discriminated against. But, when you're playing both sides of it, which is what happened here, and, that's the result of it. Were you all aware that the person, the plaintiff was an Asian guy?
Yep. And if the further background on that is, if it's not, what was that Stephen, that weird looking white guy that was Trump's number in his White House? I can't remember his name.
I can see his face.
It was Stephen Miller.
Yes,
Stephen Miller.
him and other groups have deliberately used Asian minorities to target Blacks, to target affirmative action. They've been up to it for the past 10 years.
Right.
And they've been working on finding the right minority, because obviously when white people tried in the past, they got shot down. So
Right.
they figured, okay, we're going to use another minority to challenge it.
Right.
Like he has a law firm, that's all they go around and do. Anything that they try and set aside, they, the administration, try and set aside for Black people. Like USDA had tried to set aside benefits exclusively in one of them COVID things. Biden passed when he first went in CARES. I don't know, they all running together. But he had set aside that my administration, USDA, was supposed to specifically forgive Blacks for farm loans for Blacks. Stephen Miller's group deliberately challenged it.
Right. I'm getting ready to share with you guys. I'm going to share with you, if I can, a video of the press conference when they announced this thing. Let me see
Good stuff.
I just opened it. Why don't I see it? I'm so bad at sharing the screen. You think I'd be good at it by now, but I can't say that I am. Here we go. All right, can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
now let me get the sound for you. Well, let me play it, see if you can hear it. I don't know. Can you hear it?
Not yet.
Okay, wait
No,
a minute.
not yet.
Wait a minute, hold on. All right, how come my screen is acting crazy? Here, it is. I want to share sound. Where's my share sound button? Okay, there it is. Okay, I think you can hear it now.
Marx, thank you for coming. Let me introduce
Can you hear it?
the participants of this press conference. The opinion issued today by the United States Supreme Court marks the beginning of the restoration of the colorblind legal covenant that binds together our multiracial, multi-ethnic nation. Polarizing, stigmatizing, and unfair jurisprudence that allowed colleges and universities to use a student's race and ethnicity as a factor to either admit them or reject them has been overruled. These discriminatory admissions practices undermined the integrity of our civil rights laws. Ending racial preferences in college admissions is an outcome that the vast majority of all Americans of all races will celebrate. A university doesn't have real diversity when it simply assembles students who look different but come from similar backgrounds and talk and act and think alike.
For so long, Asian Americans have strived for acceptance and recognition, for our contributions to building a foundation of this country to be acknowledged, and for us to take up our rightful place within the society. Today's decision has started a new chapter in the saga of the history of Asian Americans in this country. It marks the promise of a new beginning, a resurgence of the principles of the American dream, and a return to the egalitarian principles for all in this shining city on a hill.
Did you hear that nonsense?
Right, they just,
Shameful.
they actually steal the language that Black people have used to fight for their rights in this country. I mean, the saga, granted, the Chinese were here with the railroads, but no one has shed as much blood for freedom in this country as the Black American, no one. And for Asians, I don't think that they're just they hired lawyers. These lawyers may have been going around, but this has been brewing for years.
Yeah.
With Asian Americans squaring off and plotting against not only with Black people and white people, but their target was that Blacks were not, they're just not on a par. So this has been brewing in the Asian community for years. And it's a very sad day for us. Even when you look at the Hispanic population, once they get in power, they'll ride our coattails, but once they get in power, then it's a different story. That this in particular is just very, very disheartening.
Yep. Any other thoughts on that? Anybody?
Definitely. I mean,
The play on the language. The play on the language is
exactly like that. When he said the Civil Rights Act, I'm like, not that same Civil Rights Act that in part one of the many reasons Dr. King was shot over. Not that Civil Rights Act, not that Civil Rights Act that he went and pleaded with Kennedy numerous times to try and pass. That Civil Rights Act, which is why the majority Black people voted for Kennedy on a promise. That's why when Kennedy was assassinated, LBJ couldn't turn his back on that. It was like, why do you think we voted for y'all?
Right.
I'm sorry, I just get worked up because and I'm not even a born Black American, but I get worked up for y'all. Because it's just nerve.
We appreciate your passion. We appreciate your passion.
Right. You're a quote unquote ally. Right.
Oh, it's the absolute nerve.
Well, because I think, it'll be interesting even when I talk about, the right to vote. So when we say Black Americans don't have a permanent right to vote, what does that mean for Black immigrants? So that'll be very interesting.
When you get your right to vote through citizenship, there's a little clause in there that says your citizenship you can be denaturalized, which means you would lose said right to vote.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, naturalization is not absolute. Like if I want to go and plot, basically if I did what they do it on January 6th, somebody could literally petition the court for me to lose my US citizenship.
Yes. I know that from teaching, I have a student who is from Guyana. She's Black, and teaching her how to read and prepare for her citizenship test. I think it's interesting if all of us just look at what people legally immigrating into the country have to go through and what they have to know to pass the citizenship test. Most native born would not pass the citizenship test, I dare say, but
very true.
Right.
So on that note, I have to share with you all, did anybody see this new sister who I didn't know? Her name is Tesla Figaro. Does anybody know who she is?
No.
I put Teslin. Okay, I put a thing in the chat. So there's this Indian guy who's Asian, who's running for president, and he is riding our coattails all the way to the bank. And he is saying, he has this big platform about how he feels that, if people want to vote, because they know young people can vote against their interests, the Republicans, so they're trying to figure out, I guess, how to get young people out of the process. So his whole platform, part of his platform is that if anybody wants to vote in this country, you must be able to pass the same entrance exam that, exam for citizenship that immigrants have to pass. Otherwise, you can't vote. Well, this sister eats him alive because here he is running for office. And I think he says he's 37 years old. And the first time he ever voted was in 2020, y'all. He's never even voted his damn self. But I got it. I'm going to put it in the chat. She is our new best friend. Oh, she eats him alive, and she does it with such sophistication. And then, of course, they remind him, but for Black people, your mama not here, you not here. What are you talking about? And you just got to see this video. So, yeah. But yeah, most of us probably could not pass that test.
Believe me.
But there's a reason. There's a reason we can't pass the test. I was talking to somebody this morning. We don't have civics in the school. We don't have anything about finance in the school.
Yep.
Anything that we need to make us whole and independent and non-reliant on the government, and not just for Black people, the country, the dumber they can. That's why Donald Trump is so appealing, because people are stupid and they know that Americans are largely disinterested or, very easily manipulated. And so there we have Donald. But yeah, so has anybody, Melinda, had you heard of Teslin Figueroa? Do you listen to the Breakfast Club? We can't hear you, Melinda. Everybody got an audio problem? She's unmuted, but I can't hear her. Does anybody here watch the Breakfast Club? Because it appears to me that this lady might have replaced Angela Yee on the Breakfast Club. I don't listen to her with regularity, but she's powerful.
But because of you, you got me watching you got me listening to Joe Madison sometimes.
Well, that's where I first heard about, and I live in Florida. I don't have a TV, so the first place I heard about this new law about being beneficial or whatever was on the Joe Madison show, and he was angry, and he was passionately angry, and I think it was because, one, he recognizes what's happening, that there is this, he is a civil rights activist from way back when, and he sees the dismantling of his work and in real time. And I think also the other thing that was discouraging to him was also that, what are you doing in Florida? Like, and then he said around the country, he said, which somebody else just said, I think it was you, Michelle, about it metastasizing, that, if we ignore it happening in Florida, then it will, this guy, and we know Texas is half crazy, about as crazy as Florida. And the guy in Virginia, who they're also talking about maybe making him run for president, anything that Florida does, he tries to do in Virginia. So, when we don't, I think Joe's passion was, why aren't we in Tallahassee on the State House steps by the thousands? And I'm not saying that, and we should do that, but we should be doing that. We should, across the country though, we can't act like this is a Florida problem, because this guy is trying to run for president, even though he's so far flopping. But he's only flopping because Trump is still in the picture. And Trump says even if he's in prison, which we know he won't be, he'll still run for president. And our system is so screwed up that it will allow, there's nothing that precludes him from being able to do that, which is ridiculous, right?
Yes.
And these people will vote for him. He will be their hero from, in an orange jumpsuit. It's ridiculous. So yeah, if anybody wants to speak, just speak up, because it's a very small group today. So you can just open up and say what you want to say. I feel like I'm doing me and Michelle doing all the talking.
I thought you were gonna play something from Teslin.
Oh no, her interview, I'm gonna put it in the chat. Her interview is like 40 some minutes, but you definitely, I swear, if you just want to say and get out your popcorn. And the great thing is, this guy, when he was on this Indian candidate, when he was on CNN, he got into a thing with Don Lemon, and Don Lemon was, he was like, when you walked in my shoes as a Black person, then you can talk to me. Well, they fired Don the next day. And, really, it was because Becky's were crying about Don. But yeah, so this guy, I'm sure Don was watching it and eating his popcorn, because Teslin tore him a new one just for Don. But, we all know, like, affirmative action has mostly helped other people as more than it has helped us. Because it was interesting, because I didn't hear a whole lot of hoopla. Who's third, Judy? I don't know what you're talking about. Who's third?
Vivek.
He's in third place?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Right
Well,
now.
Yeah, I'm sure he's running. Him and what's the him and Tim Scott and what's the woman from South Carolina, the other Indian that wants
Nikki
to be
Haley.
Nikki Haley. I'm sure they're all running, hoping to be vice president to somebody. I don't know. But
And
yeah,
that party's so petty, Helen. I could definitely see him putting Nikki Haley as the number 2, and they will come out and say it, Indian against Indian. Watch.
so what are you saying?
I can see him picking Trump and or the powers that be in the Republican Party saying, well, clearly it's not going to be Pence because Pence is challenging him. But I could see them, their logic is so warped. Like I remember when Reverend Warnock was running for senator.
Right. Oh, and they ran the dunce.
Exactly. But they just saw a black man for black man. That they think that people are so ignorant, but their base actually is. So be like, oh, if you want a black Indian VP, we can give you one. Come forth, Nikki Haley.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't put anything past them, but what I do have to give them props for, if in fact they have, see, and here's my fear for the upcoming election, is that if in fact the Republicans have lost the party due to a policy, as soon as they got in office, the first thing they would have done was address the policy. And remember, the 2016 election was decided not by vote, but by the Electoral College. And the Democrats have been in place. Has there even been mention of the Electoral College? Not at all. So we can be mad at the Republicans all day long, but they are on top of their game. And they, you know, I don't know what else to say on that one. It's just ridiculous. So I fear that no matter what happens at the polls, we can see a repeat of 2016. Does anybody else share that view?
I don't know. I see the demographics shifting to such a degree. I don't think the ilk of a Donald Trump or DeSantis could win. Now, that could be naive, but
You're not naive. I don't think there's enough vitriol, and they don't either. There are not enough vitriolic racist people in the United States to pull a national election. They know that. Donald Trump has never won an election. Donald Trump didn't win in 2016, and Donald Trump didn't win in 2020. And we need to be very careful with the language. He was, you know, my friend says, well, he was still elected. Like, he was elected by the Electoral College, which is antiquated. It needs to go away. And there's just no reason that they can't do the same thing now. And I was listening to somebody today, and like 4 of the states that didn't give him the last time, didn't give him the electoral, the votes that he needed, he has put, they have put Republicans in charge of whatever, the election office or however that works for those states. So these people are very strategic, and they think ahead all the time.
But that's why what comes of this, God, yeah, we got to pray for Fannie down in Atlanta, come what may, because all the fact that they had barricades outside the courthouse in Georgia says this is coming really soon. And if they do go the conspiracy route, it's crucial that Georgia, above all, I know Jack Smith, whatever, the feds are doing their thing, but we all know. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump the gun. Is that on your agenda?
Go ahead.
But you know, she has the better case, and particularly even if he wins the primary, and as you says, because of this antiquated system, somehow even wins the presidency. At least with the Georgia case, they can't get around that, because that's still a state case. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, the feds should trump. In normal circumstances, yes. But we need these state cases to hold his ass accountable.
Right.
Because between him and, I mean, what do you think about Rudy Giuliani coming out and admitting what he did to Shay and her mom?
Oh, isn't that horrible? Horrible. Like, who didn't know that? Who didn't know that that's what they had done to that poor, you guys, tell them what's happening there, Michelle, for people who don't know what happened. I think they'll remember the mother.
These were two election worker, black female election workers. Mother and daughter, and they were seen on some video. You know how typical mama give you a mint, like, here, baby, take this. And Giuliani decided that he would say that he gave her a flash drive and fake votes and all this other stuff. They got tormented at work, had to leave work. Neither of them work for there anymore. The mom had a private business. I forget her name right now. She had to give up her business suffered. She used to bake cakes and stuff. And so she would wear her shirts to advertise her business. She couldn't even do that anymore because of the target. As she said when she testified before the January 6th committee, do you know what it's like to have the president of the United States target you by name directly?
Exactly. And that's
so he's sticking all his pit bulls on you. They moved in with the grandmother. They got bombarded. People came to the grandmother house. I mean, the only thing they left for them to do was to burn a cross.
So this past week, Rudy Giuliani admitted that he lied because they're suing him. And he admitted that he lied and that they had never done anything of the sort. But the damage is done, And the daughter had been an election worker for a very long time, and she felt horrible because she felt like she dragged her mom into it. But they couldn't go anywhere and have any peace. So I'll look for, if somebody has a minute, you can pull that article and place it in the chats. But anyway, in terms of affirmative action, we're going to wrap that up. Like right now is that admissions, but trust and believe that this is going to spread beyond that, and it will be, it will also affect the workplace. And that's when it's going to be interesting, because then it's going to affect even the Asians who think, and there has been articles where some Asians recognize that they're being used in this whole thing, because they don't give a damn about Asians either. And the interesting thing is Asians out-test white students. So now, if you're going to come after the whole, no mention at all of this whole thing with legacy. And, it's saying, I saw an article also towards the end of the week that said that, honestly, these Ivy League schools are more interested in money. They don't care if you're Black people with money. Well, they like white people with money and legacy. But, even if they want diversity that has money. So we'll see where this goes, but I'm sure it's going to go farther than anybody imagined. So unless somebody just has something else they want to share on that, I'm going to see if I can find where I pulled up for you all to watch this. So we're going to roll over into respectability politics. Excuse me. And whoops. Can you all, wait a minute, hold on. I don't even know what I got going on here. It's too much happening. Click here to view. Oh, darn it. Hold on, let me come back.
Helen, while you're doing that, could I just add, I came across this article in all my papers about a woman named Yvonne Young Clark. She's viewed as the first lady of engineering. It doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about. But when you talk about Black history, there's so much history that we'll just never know. I mean, we hear like top 10 people, but this woman was the first Black woman to earn a mechanical engineering degree from Howard University. She spent a summer also working with NASA in Huntsville, Alabama, investigating Saturn V booster engines for hotspots. And then there was one other thing. Oh, she worked on refrigerants, the experimental evaluation of the performance of alternative refrigerants in heat pump cycles. And she was given a Woman of Color Technology Award and distinguished service by Black engineers. But when she talked, so it was just
anybody to tell me that I
yes,
can't own all of me. I can show titties, I can show ass, I can be in a suit, I can be in a swimsuit, I can drink, I can smoke weed, I can do all of that. I'm not into respectability politics. I never was. Respectability politics is killing us. Spiritually, it's killing us. Like, we don't talk about that enough. And I think what you see, and I've been doing it for years, is like trying my best to like dissolve that and unlearn all of that. I'm owning all of me. I'm owning all of me, and I'm showing up for me. And I think we're
okay. Let me see if I can. I'm trying to turn it off. Did I stop sharing it? No.
yes.
So, for those of you who don't know what that's all about, I should have had a picture ready. At the Essence Awards, when she was performing, she lifted her, she had on like a bra type thing, and she just lifts it and exposes one of her boobs. And there was a whole lot of controversy about, there's a hot controversy about women showing their bodies and the twerking. I'm sure you've all heard about the BET Awards. People said it was just a hot mess. I didn't watch it, but I hear it was a mess. But anyway, so we have our young people who are feeling that this there are no boundaries on their bodies, and that these are expressions of freedom for them. And when they talk about, who knows what, are you all familiar with respectability politics? Anyone?
Nope.
Okay, let me share. I went to the Urban Dictionary, right? Because that's where we find out all our stuff. And I'm going to share with you what is the definition for respectability politics. Let me pull it up real quick for you. Okie doke, 1 second. Let's say share the screen. Essentially, it's just saying that we older folks want to, we seek approval from white folks. So basically, this is a respectability politics. It says it refers, and this is from the Urban Dictionary, it refers to attempts by marginalized groups to police their own members and show their social values as being continuous and compatible with mainstream values, AKA white folks, rather than challenging the mainstream for its failure to accept differences. So basically, I think what young people are saying is that, well, is there a young person on here who wants to elaborate on what respectability politics mean? Anybody? No? Okay. So basically, it's saying that, you know, they think that previous generations looked for validation from white people, from white America. And so that's why, you know, we dress the way that we do. And so for me, it's a matter of our history. I think our young sisters aren't aware of the history of Black women being thought of and treated as Jezebels, and you know, and the history of our foremothers being raped, and somehow because they were, you know, these wanton women, it was their fault that they were raped. You know, our foremothers being, you know, I remember as a young person being very happy that, you know, a white man couldn't just say, I had that wench in my bed tonight, right? Because our foremothers had no choice in this. And I don't know that our young sisters are even thinking about that. You know, and is it generational? Does it go from one generation to the next? Because Lord knows we wore midriffs and hot pants, and our parents thought we were the end of the world too. But it is so far beyond that at this point. So I don't want to do all the talking. Anybody have any thoughts on what Miss Monet said? Her name is Janelle Monet, right?
Right. It's
So
Janelle Monáe.
So does anybody have any thoughts on what she said, or just the whole concept of respectability politics?
Well, Helen, I used to, well, I still love Janelle Monáe. I think she's brilliant. But in the beginning, you know, she was kind of, and I don't know if she identifies as queer or what, but she was very conservative in her dress.
Yeah, she says
Oftentimes,
she's pansexual, whatever.
okay, all right. So sometimes, you know, you would see her and she would be like in a suit, or you know, in a suit and a tie sometimes, you know. And
Right.
then, you know, a few years ago I saw her, she was half naked. I was like, well, what happened? I tend to agree with you, but the thing I found interesting was when you posted it on, I guess, Facebook, you got a lot of pushback. I'm assuming from young people, but a lot of people didn't agree. You know, they thought that, you know, this was fine. And I mean, I know there's always a difference in the generations, and I've transitioned from that one that people were probably shaking their head at, to, you know, now I'm shaking my head. But I think that there was a lot of diverse opinion on what you said. And so I found that to be really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think for any topic, there's always diverse opinion. Anybody who's in that Google group, for those of you who get too many emails, sorry, nothing I can do about it. But there's always diverse opinions on all of this stuff. But is it generational? Is it and let me see if I can find a picture, because some of these pictures are outlandish. But I'm not on my other laptop. I'm on my laptop, so let me see if I can find them. But does anybody else have any thoughts on any of this stuff?
Well, I do. One of the things I think of, we have, how would you say? Well, saying it's generational is kind of the dismissal. Well, you're old, so
Right.
what you think doesn't matter. And I think that it's an easy out to rather than really trying to stand back and say, how does this affect things, and what is this saying about us? What is this saying to people who follow you? And we've got a lot of young people who are looking up to some of these performers, and they're not in a protected situation like some of these performers are. You're on national television showing stuff, and then these girls think they can go out on the street and show, some girls, not all, even some boys go out and show stuff. And I think it's a distraction. It's a titillating distraction that takes us away from some of the important issues that have to do with respecting ourselves, respecting the impact that we have on our own society, and even bringing up white folks. It's, to me, I hear I understand the concept of us trying to behave in front of white folks. But to me, internally, I think there's questions and issues that have to do with self-pride, but self-respect, and also maybe a respect for the community that whether we want to recognize it or not, that they're representing.
Yeah, I think I think, can you all see the screen I'm sharing with you? I put my blog.
God, yes.
More than we ever wanted to see.
More than I ever wanted.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing before anybody. But
My eyes are crossing. My eyes is crossing.
Right, so you see Sierra in the upper right-hand corner. Sierra this is how she showed up for some awards with her husband. And the crazy thing is that they do Christian ministry in the local prison.
What?
And yeah, they do. And then Beyonce, her clothing there is just suggestive, obviously. And then you have in the middle left, that's Miss Lizzo, and Lizzo is literally boarding an airplane, and that's how she dressed. The lady on the floor with her whatever, that's Nicki Minaj, and she's singing. I don't know if that's the BET Awards or the Essence Awards, one or the other. The lower left is Janelle Monáe, and that's when she, just for no reason, exposes her boob in the middle, like really, and she has a little pasty on it that you can't see from this picture. And then the controversy with Keke Palmer and her her boyfriend tweeting that she should not have, what's his face? Usher serenades her, and it gets, I guess, suggestive, and the boyfriend maybe gets jealous or whatever, and he tweets that, but you're a mom. And so that went left real quickly. But this is what we're dealing with. And I think that, we earn respect. So we can't have it both ways. We can't say people don't respect us, but then we show up in a way that says, I don't respect myself. I mean, that's how I receive it. I don't know how other people receive it, but, and I say the same thing to our young men. When I see them with their butts hanging out, you're like, really? Like, you already walking into the room saying that I don't respect myself, so I don't expect that you're going to respect me either. And I find this whole notion of respectability politics, to me, that's a smokescreen to not deal with the real issue. And the real issue is, if we're showing up like this, it's saying something about us. I think the difference in previous generations was, the shock factor has gone crazy. You remember Madonna and Cher. Does anybody remember when Diana Ross is on stage with Little Kim and what she did? She patted her boob and told her to cover up or something. That
Oh,
didn't go
Lord.
over well. I don't know if you all remember that, but that didn't go over well. But isn't generational, but we knew that we were not supposed to dress like the entertainers. We didn't even think about it. And you could tell there were clothes that were for hookers and there were clothes that were for, other folks. But you knew hooker clothes. And now, I used to tell this joke that, the Johns must be pretty confused because they don't, you can't, you could identify a hooker by the way that she was dressed. But I say that, and people can say I'm shaming or whatever, but I don't know that we can tell the difference anymore. So I'm babbling. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Yes, I do.
I know.
I don't know if anyone
Hello?
remembers a award show a few years back, I think when Lizzo first came out. And on her backdrop, she had a quote from Malcolm that the Black woman is the most disrespected person on earth. And I was just obviously appalled because obviously you know nothing about Malcolm,
Right.
because she was essentially naked on stage for her performance. And I thought it was a tremendous insult to Malcolm and his memory, his legacy, what he stood for, and the statement itself. You're practically naked on stage and you use his statement.
And his wife,
I was
right.
just appalled, I was shocked, and I just chalked it up to obviously she has no understanding and using, ignorance in the pure definition of the word, not passing judgment, but you would, if you understood Malcolm, you would never do that.
But
I know I'm probably sharing, hello?
Go ahead, Miss Reynolds, go
I
ahead.
know I'm probably showing my age by making this statement, but in referring to the biblical sense, we said God created things that are hard to get and hard to find, like the diamond. You got to go down in that mine and search for that diamond, and the pearl, you got to get in the oyster, get the oyster out of the ocean, and gold, you got to mine it. And said everything that's precious is hard to see and hard to attain. And our bodies are the most precious thing. So why are we out there just giving it away and making it so available, in terms of how we present ourselves to the world? And I think that we're not doing ourselves any justice by trying to use a term respectability associated with the way you dress.
Well, with disrespectful behavior.
Exactly.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Miss Niles, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. It just comes full circle about the importance of teaching our history. I remember some time ago, I had to correct a professor who was saying that when they were showing the slaves, they were not naked and whatever. And I had to tell her when they came off the boat, they didn't come with a suitcase full of clothes and they were naked, right? And they had to go through that shame. So as you were saying, our youths do not know our history, and we need to teach them what our foreparents went through and bear for us the shame and the trauma that they had to live with. And so we really have to, full circle, we really need to teach them our history to let them know, because they're following mainstream media, which is leading them down a trap. And I say that to say Beyonce's concert is this evening. We were coming home from a funeral and I was telling my daughter, look at this girl. I'm seeing her cheek. And she made no comment, but then she came home and dressed to go to Beyonce's concert. And when I saw what she was wearing, I'm like, that's why you didn't make a comment, And I open my mouth and, most of the time they don't like it, but we have to educate our young people on our history.
Absolutely.
Now, can I ask, where are you from, Miss Niles?
I am in New Jersey right now.
Oh, I heard an accent, that's why.
Oh, Grenada.
Okay. And the reason why I asked to see if you were Caribbean too, because a similar discussion, as you know, is taking place with the diaspora as far as Carnival. The costumes have gone from very, very covered Carnival costumes to strings, like literally a string.
Definitely.
A costume I wore in Orlando, it covered so little of the lady parts area, I had to buy brown panties to wear underneath it because it didn't have enough fabric. But the very similar discussion, I'm sure you would agree, is going on, like, okay, because what happens, of course, is that the little clips that make it to IG and other places is that's what particularly white people think that's what Carnival's about. It's over sexualization. Imagine if you only saw people flashing their boobs at New Orleans Mardi Gras. You would think that's all Mardi Gras is about, showing your boobs. And that's not all Mardi Gras is about.
Yes, I agree totally.
Yeah, that's interesting because did anybody see, and this is very, very, very disgusting. Those of you who know about the quote unquote slave castles in Ghana and Western Africa. So it's the ports where they would stock us up till they had enough of us to cross the Atlantic.
Yep.
Yeah, they're in Senegal, they're in Ghana. I would imagine anywhere in West Africa they have the same to the ones in Ghana. But they're very spiritual, very moving, very it's a sad place to be. Well, how come our young girls were there twerking? Did you hear me? Twerking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you told us
I
that.
think we have to get to the boys as well. I have to get to the young men. And I'll give you a personal experience. One, I was in high school and I had a see-through blouse. And I knew my mom did not want me to wear that blouse. So I ran upstairs, I put it on, and I was rushing out the house. Bye, Mom. And she says, come back here. And I was like, I put my head through. She said, no, come all the way in the kitchen. And she says, you're going to school. Go upstairs and change that dress. So she made me do something that I knew I was not supposed to do it. So parents have to, the parent who said I spoke to my daughter who's going to the Beyonce concert, parents have to speak up. But the other thing that was more important, even than a mom speaking up, I must have been 24, 25, and I had a boyfriend, and she and I were going to a park. And I went upstairs to change, to come on down, and I had a really short hot pants. Talking about Miss Hot Pants, Miss Higgi.
Oh yeah,
I had a hot pants on. And he looked at me and he says, are you going to find a man or you have a man already? I never forgot that.
Said that. Wow.
Yes. He said, are you going to look for one or you already have one? He made me go and change that pants.
Because he had parents that raised him.
We
had a
have
father
to get to the boys, not just the girls, to have them understand what it is we're doing. And I was 24 and I'm 66 today and I still remember that situation. Because go ahead, I'm done.
No, I was gonna say, I do hear our boys talking on, for those more on social media, which I'm way too much, but I do hear them, excuse me, I do hear our boys talking about the girls with the fake hair, the fake eye. They make numerous jokes about the eyelashes and I don't know, this whole baby hair thing, all this stuff. So I do hear our boys saying that, but as much as they say that's not the woman that they want, these women aren't doing that for no reason, right? It's obviously working. And then back to Lizzo. When you talk about Lizzo, people will say that you're fat shaming. I have a person that I was very good friends with, friendly with, and I was just absolutely offended because, when I said something about Lizzo online, she assumed that I was saying these things because Lizzo was overweight. And so I'm thinking she knows me better, well enough to know better than that. And then, when Sierra, I criticized Sierra's outfit as much as I criticized Lizzo, but this woman literally, she took an attitude, I think, with me because of that. And then I took an attitude because I'm like, really? I don't even feel like, it's not like you don't know me. I shouldn't even have to explain that to you. It has nothing to do with, so here's the thing that other people will say, those pants that Lizzo has on, and those are actually, it's not pants, it's her lingerie line. So if it's your lingerie line, like put something over it. Like, why are you getting on an airplane with your total buttocks hanging out? That's just ridiculous.
Well,
so your lingerie line, and put some pants over it. What'd you say, Ms. Johnson?
I was going to say, well, first of all, it's unsanitary. Would you want to sit in that seat after her?
Never. She went to a football game like that.
That's
she went
unsanitary.
To a football game the same way.
Is it that they're seeking attention? And then what does it say for our young girls? I don't understand. And I'm glad you talked about the whole Caribbean thing, Michelle, because, twerking, I don't know, does it come from the Caribbean? but clearly, you know, suggestive dancing, even with our Latino dancing, and I guess we've had it too, but you know, clearly, oh yeah, because who didn't slow drag and grind in the corner? Well, I don't
That
think,
is exactly what I was gonna say.
yeah, I don't think young people, they probably like, what is slow drag?
They don't dance together anymore.
They don't
But-
dance.
They don't.
Like,
Everything
They
is,
dance
to
in
me,
groups.
most of everything is done for social media. And that,
Yeah.
with that attention where you said,
yeah.
that's it. It's just about what, you know, how scandalous, how worthless can I be? Because if me and you, if I take you to Carnival right now and we just hold hands and walk down the street chipping and, you know, a cocktail in either, you know, you have one in your right, I have one in my left, and we holding hands in the middle and just skipping down the road. No video man, no cameraman is going to post that picture. They're not going to be like, oh, look at these two black queens. No. Now let me do a split. You throw your leg up in the air like the girl in the red picture. Oh, that's all over social media. That's what makes social media.
Yeah.
Not the, oh, they just relax. You know, that's not it. Everybody's going for the, I don't even know what the word is, but
It's
to
the
get
shock,
attention.
it's the
The
shock
shock.
factor.
That's it. That's
And then
exactly it. That's the
let
word.
me say this, and then I'm going to let Ms. McCrae speak. Do you all, who remembers when Madonna wrote, I can't write, that's using that term so loosely. Madonna published, it was a pornographic book. I remember Madonna did everything to outdo everybody. Do you remember? This was in the 90s. I remember because I was living in California. I was managing in an office, and she published this book of her in various positions with even bestiality. It was very disgusting. And you could only buy, the book had to be sealed. It couldn't be unsealed because it was pornography. So they were selling it in like Barnes and Nobles or whoever, but you could not unseal the book in the store. And once you bought it, it was yours. And it was so lewd that, you know, people were bringing it to work, and we had to tell them like, no, this is pornography and you can't have this at work. And Madonna has been trying to outshock, I guess, Cher for the beginning. It's just outrageous. And now, and here's the other thing, Black women, white women are not our benchmark. So why would we, so I can't even say that because they do it, we should do it. They're not our benchmark. That's no excuse for us to do it. And if we had nothing, we had dignity, always, always. So it's just interesting. Go ahead, Donna McCrae.
Hey, I wanted to ask everyone how they feel about this Carlee Russell thing that happened.
Yeah, that's our next topic. That's our next topic.
Why would she do that? Does anybody have any insight on that?
No, but let's wrap this one up. Then we can go to Carlee Russell. So does anybody else have any more thoughts on this whole thing with our young lady and, you know, our young people? Lala, did you have something you wanted to say on this topic? And Donna, we'll come right back to you.
Yes.
Lala?
Yes. The other thing I've been thinking of and listening to all your valuable input is that we say if we taught them the history, they would recognize it and understand. And I think that it's more about what public attention they can get. I forget, I think it was Michelle that was talking about what's going to get them attention, what's going to get you numbers, what's going to make you an influencer, which is just one of the weakest concepts, destructive concepts I see up there right now, because
Correct.
people will do anything. And I think that overlaps into what Donna's talking about, which is what people will do and what Black women will do to be able to have the numbers, have the popularity, have the recognition, and monetize it. That's the other big thing that's happening. You know, you become enough of an influencer, people are making money. And money, in a lot of cases, especially for us, is an anathema. You know,
bling, bling, bling.
Yep. Sell out. And even with people like, you know, some people that are famous entertainers now, I don't get it. I don't see musicality I don't hear musicality in a lot of the music. I'm going to say it. I think Beyonce's overrated. I don't understand it. And when I see someone who truly has a gift of creativity or musicality or something, they're not getting recognized.
Right.
They're not there. So there really is this push to be to just be recognized. That was pretty much. Thank you
Yeah,
for.
there's definitely a deliberate effort to kill the message and the spirit of our music. So Donna, you can come back on now. That leads right, I think, comfortably right into the Carlee Russell situation, which was the next topic of discussion. And I don't know why she did it. I mean, Donna's question was, does anybody have any ideas about why you think she did it? Donna, what do you think?
I really don't know. For her to talk about a kid being on the side of the road, I mean, any of us, I think, with compassion, if you saw a child by themselves on the side of the road, we would try to probably stop and try to help. We would. But for her to fabricate that whole setting, and even her ex-boyfriend said she was lying.
Right.
How was she doing this? I mean, she had the whole Black community coast to coast worried about her. Where is she? What happened? Have I seen her?
I mean, she staged it, but you know what? In your heart of hearts, so for me, when I first questioned it was when she turned up. How do you just turn up 2 days later, unharmed, unbothered, money still in your sock, your kidnappers didn't want to leave marks on your wrist, so they didn't tie. Come on, girl, stop. So, I mean, before you even heard all that, you knew, okay, and you're hoping, Lord Jesus, don't let this be another false one. Right. But if we had thought it out, honestly, if there's a baby on this, and the cops probably knew it was bullcrap from the beginning, because if in fact there's a baby on the side of the street, you think they're only going to get one call? Only one car is going to stop. Only one call is going to go to 911. So the cops probably knew from the beginning that this is not right. And I don't know if you all saw her mugshot. She finally admitted that she lied. And now the question, I think, is are the parents involved? And then if it is, they got a big problem. Her bail was only, she got hit with 2 misdemeanors. One for filing a false police report, and I forget what the other one, but misdemeanors. Her bond was $1,000 on each, and they got her out on $200. She's home, and she's not at all concerned about, what's going to happen to her. And I don't know if it's mental illness, Miss Jones. Miss Jones put in there, does she have a history of mental illness? People who knew her have stories about her past behaviors. So for those of you who didn't see the police, I got to give the cops credit, right? Because they knew what language not to use to inflame Black America so that we would get off target. They let you know in a very ginger way that this is bullshit, right? They never called her a liar, but they let you know that there is no hope. There's no reason for you to be concerned about your children. So, and that was before she came out. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Right, but I was gonna say, that young lady, that speaks to people wanting attention, because she's not the first one. A couple months ago, another woman has done the same thing. So people want attention, and they create these stories because it did get media attention.
But do we know that there are 98, in that article I just posted there for you, it cites that there are 98,000 missing Black women and children and 89,000 missing Black women. Those are astronomical numbers. And so for this girl to do this and to seemingly have no remorse about doing it, because she looks, let me put up her mugshot for you all so you can see what I'm talking about. And
while you're doing that, also keep in mind when we say mental illness, it's always not as extreme as we think. People say mental illness, they expect you to be swinging from the chandeliers and drooling. But to have an emotional concern, either with needing attention, which can become pathological, this would be an example of that, or someone that will do anything to get attention, that is a form of mental instability. It's not just, people wandering in the street naked. And the issue of what was going on with her is a big one because of the impact it had. But the other thing that surprised me is, for some reason, when I saw the picture of her, the first picture they have of her, not the mug shot, it's, I'm going to say this, shoulders back, tits out, low cut blouse, all of somebody else's hair. And I'm just like, who is she trying to attract? And I admit to the possibility of me being prejudiced or reactive to it. But with the situation, it just seemed like I'm wondering if those are aspects of something that made her think it was okay to do this, or that she needed to do this for some type of attention. That's all.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, clearly, look, for you, her plan was so well plotted, like she calls 911, and then she calls the sister-in-law. She reports the baby missing. Seems very legitimate. She calls the sister-in-law like she's being this good Samaritan and she's going to stop. Next thing you know, she screams, her phone, and then she leaves at the side of the road. Her phone, her what do you call the watch? Because it can track you. Anything that could track her, she leaves her phone and her watch and her wig. Can y'all believe that she pulls off her wig?
Yes.
Now, what she didn't do was leave all the items that she had just gone to Target to buy for her little weekend getaway. So the cops
And snacks.
yeah, and when she rolls up in home, like you still got what kidnapper cares whether or not they leave restraint marks on your wrist? I mean, it just none of it made sense. So clearly, but then to think that were her parents involved in this, that's horrible.
But why would we think, did I miss something? Why would we think her parents were involved?
No, that's what the streets, as they say, the young people, that's what the streets are saying, that the parents are somehow this is, allegedly being implicated in all of this, because where was she for 2 days? And I don't know, but that's what they're saying. I haven't seen the press conferences with the mother. They're saying her responses weren't right. So I don't know. There's going to be a lot of speculation that's going to happen. And then she had stolen some items from her job, so even though she doesn't have a heavy bail or whatever, at this point, are they going to, this is her mugshot. You guys see her mugshot?
Yeah, she looks happy.
Why is she smiling?
I know, right?
That's not gonna, I guess because she got a slap on the wrist so far, she's not looking at any real time. And remember, this is a social media hound. If you look at her social media, she's got all these very sexy pictures of her, which is fine, but now you took it too far.
No, it's not. Oh, it's not, because it's 2 steps away from this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You see these, I'm on Facebook very, very rarely. And I always, I get the, friends, people, these people might be your friends. And so many of us are, these come hither shots with, cleavage and, come hither looks. And I don't see how it's safe or useful to us. Her whole thing seems to be something about attention and look at me. And you got to remember, I'm going to the bigger picture. We've had white folks who do this, people that lost their son with the air balloon, and that couple, the woman that claimed some black people.
Nobody will ever forget Susan Smith, who said the black guy kidnapped her
baby.
Yeah, so
Right.
Women lie. You had a white woman who said the Mexicans kidnapped her and she just didn't want to get married. So it happened. So I'm not making any, and they get to claim mental health. And so I guess this young lady does too. I think the community is angry with her because so often they don't look for us. And then you got everybody looking for you because of the baby trap, right? So that's what when she offered her apology, I said, apology not accepted from me, because I thought her actions were so calculated. Like she sat down and thought every step of that out. And then the dummy goes on the internet and tracks it all. So they knew, like girl, they had her phone all along. They knew what she was up to. So yeah. So that's the Carlee thing. And then you had the young lady. Did you guys see the woman like in the same week or the next week? The lady in LA who went to the store claiming that she was the winner for the $1 billion. Did anybody see that? I'm like, oh my God. Why?
No.
It's just in 1 week. I didn't believe her for 2 seconds. So did anybody see that, or is it just, I put it out there a couple times for you all. Did anybody see that video?
I see it.
I missed it.
I missed it.
I missed it too.
It got 500 million or 500,000 views or something like right away.
Yeah, I saw it, Helen. I saw it.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
So what happened?
So somebody hit the lottery for $1 billion in LA, and apparently anybody don't hear from LA, because I'm hearing that that's like a Skid Row neighborhood. So we don't know who.
Well, I'm currently residing in LA, originally from Jersey, out here for 1 year. And yes, it is in the sleazy area of town.
Yeah.
Spoken
So of
like a
course
Jersey girl.
the media's hanging out to see who's going to come in with the ticket. So somehow this young lady, well, do you know the story, Sharifa? Like, what, I know it was had to be on the news out there.
Yeah, the last couple of days I wasn't watching the news because they kept talking about it so much. Where's the person? Where's the person? Where's the person?
Smart.
You know, so I missed that.
Yeah, so she shows up, and I'll see if I can find the video and show it to you guys. I'm like, girl, stop. So she apparently goes, she goes to the store, and I have no idea how it goes from her being in the store to them thinking that she's the winner, other than the fact that she had to say, I got the ticket. So of course the press is like all over her, and they're chasing her out of the street, out of the store, because they want the story. And then you've got people saying, you need security. This crazy. Let me stop. I don't know what she is, but you just gotta see it. I'm like, really, y'all? We got this two Black women claiming crying wolf in 1 week. This is not a good thing. But you know, I was talking to my sister Sonia Sanchez. I told you guys earlier this week, and she said, "Sister, you know, this is after this pandemic, we don't know what to expect." And she's right. You know, we talk about mental health issues, like, you know, what's the deal, right? Bye, Michelle. She's saying she has to go. So yeah. So anyway, who knows? But that's not a good thing. So our last topic, and we're gonna wrap this up on time because I'm packing. I got stuff everywhere, y'all. So the last thing that I want to talk about is this whole Barbie thing. Now I don't know. I just didn't know nothing about this whole Barbie thing, and I was never a kid, I don't think. But who do you all remember? You know what's happening with this Barbie movie?
It's a big splash. It's the talk of the town, but I don't.
Are you kidding?
Beyond that, I don't know if there's another story.
It's not a big splash to me. You know, it's a movie, and they're monetizing it, and you know, that's it.
So let me show you this clip real quick. And I'm gonna have to watch it all. So there's a brother professor, and he said he didn't let his daughter see it because when he refused to take her to see it, because when he saw this trailer, he just thought it was, what did he say? White. So check this out.
Hey, Barbie. Can I come to your house tonight?
Sure. I don't have anything big planned, just a giant blowout party with all the Barbies and planned choreography and a bespoke song. You should stop by.
So cool.
You can find me under the lights, diamonds under my eyes.
This is the best day ever. It is the best day ever. So is yesterday, and so is tomorrow, and every day from now until forever. Do you guys ever think about dying?
When my heart breaks.
Some things have been happening that might be related.
When my world shakes.
Cold shower, falling off my roof, and my heels are on the ground. What do I have to do? You have to go to the real world.
Okay, so I'm not going to torture you with any more of that. But essentially, this movie, though, is killing it. In the first week, in the first 5 days domestically, it made $200 million. In the first week, it made $580 million globally. And they expect that at the end of this week, it will be over $700 million. And everybody expects this movie to bring $1 billion in box office receipts. So,
Why would we care about Barbie?
so apparently, while you haven't seen,
And I would
That's what
never
I'm
let
about.
my kids go to watch a Barbie. It's just too white for me. But you know what? I'm sitting here listening, and I'm I just have to say, what happened to good old fashioned parenting? What happened to us as a people? It's heart wrenching, and it's so sad that I think we missed the marker, and I feel for the up and coming generations, because there's a whole bunch of what I call technology through terminologies and this, that, and that, this, and this, that, and we missing the real point. And for me, the real point is that, we're losing the battle. That's the way I see it. And growing up, my parents were parents. My parents didn't care what society or the outside world thought. That you wasn't allowed to, like, hot pants, all that came out, the certain music came out. My parents, they made sure that they monitored that stuff, and they raised us with value. And what happened to us going back and taking care of our own? I keep hearing all kinds of stories, but I don't hear no stories that's saying, let's build our own. Let's teach our own. We don't have to be a part. I mean, maybe it doesn't sound right that, you don't want to be a part of the system, but I think we could do a heck of a lot better. We're so educated. We got, we're not where our forefathers was in chains, but to me, they did a heck of a job holding us together, knowing our history, knowing our culture, having respect, having dignity, than what we see today. My grandkids, they know they can't come into my house and tell me about social media, this, that. They can't come into my house with their pants hanging down. They can't come into my house with their boobs hanging out. And for somebody to show their natural born behind and go on a plane, that was so disgusting. I couldn't even look at it myself. I just want to know what happened to us, and what are we really going to do to change it? I think we all too concerned about society and, what's correct and what ain't. I don't know. I just, at this point, I'm in pain. I feel sad for all of us.
I hear you. Hey, Deidre, you had your hand up. Did you want to speak, Deidre?
Yes, thank you. It's Deirdre. Jennifer, was it? Yes, Jennifer.
Yes.
I have lots of forefathers between plantations and chains and the 1960 Civil Rights Bill, and I try to honor them. But you are exactly right about how you are raising your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. Times have changed, and I don't think we acknowledge that enough. We had parents in the home. And if we didn't have parents in the home, we had grandparents in the home. We had Miss Maybell next door. We had a village that raised the children. We don't have a village anymore. We are spread out. Our children are conflicted as to who they belong to. There is no Black, what I see with the young people that I'm around, there is no Black community anymore. They're more apt to want to be little Hispanics or little Asians.
Or anything but who they are, because they don't have their self-pride, their self-worth. Somewhere we dropped the ball and we got to get it back.
They have worse self-regard for being Black than Black people had in 1862. Somehow or another, we have failed to share the old story authentically. We have made up crap about Black America, about Africans, and our children are ashamed. We see that in these 9 feet of plaits everybody's got on the back of their heads, and they all look alike. Nobody's an individual. But the failure is, and we don't have parents any longer, and I don't know that we can ever get that back. I'm new to the group. Thank you for letting me speak.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody's welcome. Everybody has a voice. Ms. Reynolds, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something, Marty? Ms. Reynolds. She stepped away. She'll come back. Let me
I'm
just
here.
share.
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, go
I had
ahead,
to
Miss
unmute-
Reynolds.
I had to unmute myself. It's kind of ironical. Just half an hour or so ago, I was browsing through Facebook, and Bernie Mac had an old line that he was saying, and the story was that he was trying to get into the pearly gates. I don't know if
I
anyone.
saw that.
How appropriate, don't you think?
Yeah, go ahead,
What
tell
we're
them what
talking
it
about.
said. Tell them.
And he was saying, you know, he had not led a good life and everything, but he said the only way that you can get into pearly gates is you can ask a question that St. Peter can't answer. And so he said, well, you know, walks down, and the guy says he sees him walking through the pearly gates, and he wants to know what question did he ask St. Peter that he couldn't answer. And the question was, when are the Black folks going to get it together? You know, and that was a question that St. Peter couldn't answer.
I forget how he asked it, but it implies, so it's a white guy, a Mexican guy, and him. They're all trying to get in. And so they were like, Bernie, you know, you go on the hill, you're not going to get in through the pearly gate. And I forget the exact question, but the question indicated that, who is it that lets us in the pearly gate? Is it
St. Peter?
St. Peter. St. Peter was a brother. He said, when are us brothers going to get a break? And he said, open the gates. And that was what he said. So Peter was a brother, I'm a brother, and he let him out. So yeah, that was it. You know, in terms of this whole Barbie thing, there is just a craze around the country, and Black people are dressing up in pink clothes and going to see this thing right along. Oh yeah, right along with white people. Yep. And so I put in the chats for you an article, and I see you, Lala, I'm going to come right back to you. There's an article that I put in the chats for you. It's a brother, he's a professor at the University of Baltimore, and he has a 3-year-old daughter. His name is Dwight Watkins. And he has his 3-year-old daughter, and he thought it was really cool because when the movie came out and she was excited, his 3-year-old, they were going to dress up in pink, and her and some other female, and they were all going to go see the movie. But he said when he watched that trailer, that thing that I just showed you that I couldn't even take for 2 minutes, he said it was, what's the word he uses? He says it was overwhelmingly white, overwhelmed him with whiteness. And he said he would not subject his daughter to that because and then he says, you know, for Barbie, I guess Barbie came out in 1959, they were all white. And then it took 2 decades. It wasn't until the 80s that they even had a Black Barbie. And then to put out this movie, so I guess it's a raisin and then somebody Latino or whatever, but it's overwhelmingly white, which you can see from that trailer, which was pretty disgusting. And you know, Black people are running to see it as much, but I'm with Team Professor because he is protecting what his daughter at 3 years old receives as being beautiful. And he's not going to subject her to that movie. And I agree with him. So anyway, those were his thoughts on it. And check out the, and the crazy thing is because he wrote this in Salon magazine, Salon online. It's all over the internet. It's on Fox TV. This Black professor refuses to let his daughter go see it. Like, why? Why is that news? Because God forbid he stood up and said, this is my position. That's newsworthy though. But anyway. And then somebody, obviously people have kept making the comparison that, you know, there was all this outrage about a little Black girl playing a mermaid, but then Black people lining up like fools to go see these white folks in
right.
in the Barbie movie. So, Ms. Lala, did you want to say something on that?
Yes. The other thing when we're talking about what parents are doing and not doing, personal stuff. When I was raised in New York City and lived in Harlem and lived in this area called the Riverton that was, you know, had, you know, upwardly mobile Black people. And I don't think we can talk about what the village can do for kids if you don't include the fact that there was horrendous colorism among ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And some sorority prejudice, that sort of thing that was going on. So, I mean, you can't generalize is all I'm putting out there. There's stuff that we're saying, well, if the village is going to take care of these kids, and things would be better. But I think there's also some elements where it's alienating, and you sit there and go, well, if I'm not okay in the Black community, then some of these kids go, well, I'll go be an exotic in the white community. I've watched that happen with some of my kids my age when we were coming up, feeling completely alienated. And this was not just the kids, these were the parents. They would have parties, and it was sort of like, if you didn't pass the brown paper bag test, for those of us who remember that, you weren't invited. And when we talk about, well, if the village could just get their act together, sometimes it's about having people's individual experiences and allowing them to feel accepted in the community. I saw some real damage done sometimes. So I just wanted to bring that up, because I think what kids are doing now is, I don't have to be in the Black community. I can be special outside. I need to find something that's going to make me stand out, whether it's exposing my boob or whatever. And I wonder where did that need come from? So thanks.
So Deirdre had mentioned an article. Deirdre, I placed it in the chat. I have not read it. So what is the gist of the article, Deirdre? And then Miss Ware.
The gist of the article, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The gist of the article, which is written by a white professor at Jackson State University, is what a wonderful time she and her youngest daughter had at the movie, and how much they love Barbie. I was disgusted. It's a generational thing. I didn't grow up with Barbie, but I grew up with little white girls, blonde hair and ponytails, and we were trash and they were perfect. And to have a Black mother at a HBCU gushing Barbie to her teenage daughter upset me.
I thought it was a white woman who wrote it.
No, she's a Black woman.
Oh, yeah. Well, I haven't seen the movie. Unfortunately, Stephanie saw it, Stephanie Gates, but she had something going on at the same time as this call, but she said she was completely underwhelmed by it. But just watching that, but I was never a kid. I don't remember ever playing with doll babies, so Barbie was never a part of my thing anyway. So that's probably why the movie came out and I knew nothing about it, because it's not of interest to me. But the marketing genius behind this, because the woman who stars in it is also the producer. So she's smart. She's making a heck of a lot of money. Miss Ware, you wanted to say something?
I came at an age where I had a Barbie and I also had a black doll with curly hair. When I looked at Barbie, when I was playing with it, I didn't look at color, because my mother and father didn't teach us about color. It's something that you learn as you grew up. So I used to accept people the way they are, not because I didn't look at the color. I looked mostly at the person, how they treat me, how they treat my family. So when I had Barbie,
are you aware of the brown of the doll baby?
I saw where they picked the white baby over the black baby, because the black baby was ugly and stuff. But see, we wasn't taught that in my family. So when I looked at, the only time I became realized is when my brother went to King's daughter nursery school. He came home one day and he says, this little girl, so-and-so, is different. And we was trying to get him to make him realize of the different color skin. I know it doesn't have to do with Barbie, but I just grew up with that. And I had to work in a position where I was only black nurse with 6 white nurses under me. So when I worked in that situation, I could not look at color. I had to look at performance. Because if I look at color, I would bring up that prejudice, that hatred of what happened or during the different times I've been slighted or not recognized. So it has to do with how you grew up. I had Barbie. My brother used to beat Barbie up or take her clothes, and I can't find them.
Well, the guy who writes that article, he talks about, well, he was pretty, and I think we all had a brother like him. He would bite the heads off of the doll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's even though we don't have genders, they want us to believe that was a boy thing. They would tear up your
right. But that's my experience with Barbie when I grew up. Because I was born in 1949, and one Christmas I asked my mom for a Barbie, so I didn't know I was going to get it, and I was surprised that I got her. But later on, when I
So
got
I
older,
have you know, we all have our own perspectives. I don't have children, but if I did, they would only play with black dolls. And that's because we're inundated with other people's perceptions of what beauty is. I saw somebody sent me a thing for a doll today. It's a little black doll, and her hair is washable hair, so the little girls can learn to start appreciating their own hair. So those things are important. I just put in the chat. I think everybody's aware of the Clark doll experiment.
may I say something else? I don't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
When I was raising my son, there was, I don't know if anybody remember My Buddy.
Oh yes, I certainly do. I do.
I searched up and down to get him a My Buddy, and I made sure that My Buddy was black. And I had to teach him about color, but also taught him to respect others and not look at their color in regards to that, because the way I was taught, so not to look at the because you get more respective. Because if I looked at that, it'd be something.
But I think what I hear you saying, which I think, you know, I think we should get away from, is when we take pride in who we are, when we say that, you know, my kid gets black dolls, it doesn't mean that somehow it's to the exclusion or the slight of others. It means that we appreciate who we are. And we have been receiving white Christmas cards, white doll bed. Nobody thought anything of it, you know, and you're in 1949. I'm going to guess there were not a whole lot of black doll around to be had.
No, I had one black doll.
Okay. But my point is that, you know, I remember being in Ghana in 2014 and I was flabbergasted. I was in a store that was the equivalent of Walmart. I think Walmart owned it. They call it Game or something over there. And there I was in the doll section and all the dolls were white. All of the dolls were white. And I took a picture and I said, where do you think I am? I'm in Africa. It's no accident.
And it's by design.
No accident. No accident. And I didn't just take it in stride. I went and found the store manager and I asked him, like, what are you doing? Like, all these dolls are white, you know? So I don't know if they look at it like, you Americans, that's your, like, you know, no, that's all our stuff. But, you know, why are we selling only white dolls in Ghana, except to make little black girls in Africa also think that the benchmark for beauty is white? There's no other explanation for that. Miss Jones, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something before we get ready to sign off? Dawn Jones.
Hi, I was going back and forth and saying so much. So I was texting. One thing that I want to say about Barbie too, I think, and when I was growing up, I always loved my Barbie. I don't know, they didn't have colored Barbies at the time, but for some reason, I wasn't even thinking about it at that point. I don't know if I was taught in my household as well that I was already beautiful and, you know, already, you know, smart, intelligent, like that. I grew up with that background. So I don't know until later on when I said, well, you know, somebody said, we don't have no black Barbies. And when Black Barbie came out, then you wanted the black Barbie. I had black doll babies, but Black Barbie wasn't out there. So I do think it's some education. I do think it's some, when society just puts stuff in front of you and you just accept it. And you just never, you know, you never really got into thinking about why it's not looking like me. Someone speaks up and then we change that. And then we have other options. Far as the respect, and I was trying to put in there, I started a nonprofit called Daughters of Values, Excellence, and Self-Esteem. One of the things that I realized as I was the confidence that I thought I had, that people want to put on you their problems, and they want, you know, sometimes don't want you to be confident as you are. And so I would feel as though I would fight that. I went to a predominantly white high school. I worked in a profession as an occupational therapist that was predominantly white profession. And it seemed that the more I'm confident that I, you know, walked in, the more fights I had or more opposition that I had and everything. So I found myself always trying to, you know, remember who I am. So the respect that I seen happen I took young ladies under me, trying to teach them certain things, you know, to let them know that they are valuable, no matter their color, their skin, where they grew up at, what school they went to, anything like that, their body shape. And what I'm seeing now is, or what I've seen is the parents, which is probably would have been my kids or the generation behind me, I'm talking about from a Black perspective, or they lost their value. They lost their, like, what they, yeah, like, it's like when, like, I even see this in my family, like when Big Mama, which was my grandmother, passed, some of the values, some of the things that she stood for started changing. And like, you know, you see your aunts fighting and stuff, or you see the other people fighting, you know, with the children, to make sure we hold on to it. But then it's somewhere along the line, it started to be lost. It's society changing, the morals changing, whatever it is. And I been very discouraged about with the young ladies, because the times that I have taught them things, their mothers are doing some of the behavior that I don't think they should teach them. And I have a young lady, and my daughter is really, I mean, she listens to me very well, and she doesn't seem to go off the chart, but she is very discouraged just with even being looked at and being dated. And she, to me, you know, I told her, you know, to love herself, but it's just like, she's not being the one chosen with having her values in place and having her morals in place. It's like, you know, she's not, you could tell is long, but she's not changing a lot of things, but you could tell that she's struggling with it, because if she was more showing her body more, exposing herself more, you know, acting a different attitude, it seems that she thinks that would be better for her. I just wanted to just say that, you know, just, you know, also I think it was Jennifer, Mama, just keep on pouring out what is right. You know, the older, the generation now, the kids now, to me, don't respect their elders. Like we could just speak to them and they would change, but maybe still they have some respect.
But I have to tell you, I think that young people are looking for us to step up. They're looking for somebody because we behave as though there are no expectations, that's what they give us. But as soon as we put up some expectations, my experience has been they rise to the occasion, because they know.
And I was just saying,
our responsibility.
Yeah, and we're not talking like, I mean, like one of the things when my daughter was sitting out here when we was talking about voting, and she was like, yeah, if I say in front of grandma that I'm not gonna vote, she gonna go off. My mom will have a fit. So like, she respects that position and know that if she even have a conversation about not voting, you know, that way my mom will handle it.
There has to be some boundaries that we don't have. Miss Ware, you wanted to say something real quick, because we're right up past 6 o'clock, so we're gonna wrap it.
No, that's all right. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. I didn't know, it's a check mark on your thing. First it was a hand raised.
Sorry.
I didn't even know what a check mark is, but okay.
Me neither. Sorry.
So listen, ladies, there's so much more, you know, that we could be talking about. I think the things that we need to celebrate, did anybody see where the young man talk about young people? Jaylen Brown, he signed a $300 and some million contract with some team in Boston, and he is, when they asked him what he was going to do with this money, he said he was going to use it to, you know, to address the financial wealth gap in the Boston community. Just so there are brothers out here who, young people who do know what their obligation is to the community, and we've gotten away from, you know, we talk about days of old, and you know, probably we do embellish it more, because you know, somebody asked me about living, or I used to say that I would like to go back to 40, but honestly, in the society that we live in now, I don't even want to go back. I'm good. Unless we can go back to what we had. I wouldn't want to be 40 again in this environment. It's just a horrible existence, it's a bad existence that we're dealing with right now. So, but it is all of our responsibility, whether we have children or not, to show up for our people. You know, like a young lady reached out to me the other day, and she just said, I'm in a crisis, and I don't really know what to say or do, but you know what, I'm an elder. So I called her and said, you know, sometimes they just need us to listen. And I think that's all she really needed. So we have, I called it, I was talking to Linda. Linda's in Martha's Vineyard, so she's not here with us this week. But I said, we have elder duties. We have duties as elder to our young people, and we have to accept them, whether they're our kids or not. We need to show up for our kids and let them know that we hear them. We need to hear, like, what is respectability politics? Why do you think that exposing yourself somehow equates to respect? And hear their take on it without having judgment. Like, what do they have to say about it? I don't know. But on that note, unless somebody else just has something really, that they wanted to share, I'm going to say good night. I haven't been to a beach yet this year, even though I'm in Florida, right? But I hear the bathing suits are also outrageous.
Right?
So I guess but if
Well, really
Lizzo's on a
nice,
beach with all her buttocks hanging out, I guess that's more acceptable than to be on getting on an airplane with your total ass hanging out. I don't know how you do that. Fix your face, Jennifer.
Versus unsanitary. That's what I'm saying. Who would want to sit in that seat? Definitely not me after that.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. It's just shameful.
So on that note, ladies, can you unmute yourself? We could do our little farewell thing for those of Miss Cox. How are you? So good to see you. I see Donna Sherrard is here. You didn't say anything, Donna. You don't have and you're a teacher. What are your thoughts on this? You have to have seen the progression of things over the years.
Hi, Helen. I'm glad to be here today.
Hi, Miss Cox. I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
Okay.
I'm glad you're back again.
Hey,
Helen.
go ahead, Donna. Go ahead, Donna.
Oh, I was just saying hello.
Yeah, you're a teacher, so you must have seen the progression of dress over the years.
Yes, I was just in and out of the conversations and I came in a little late, so I didn't want to pop in because I didn't know fully what you all were discussing.
Yeah. But yep. So Miss Wellens, I see you're here. We didn't hear from you. Zavita, we didn't hear from you. Zavita Francois. I love that name. So yeah. But anyway, so next week I will be moving, everybody. So I'm sure I won't do a call. Yeah, I have, it's a long story. I'll tell you all about it the next time. So we will probably not have a call next Sunday. Somebody said, Helen, just take off the month of August.
Get situated.
Yeah, I can't believe I had no intention of moving again, but I am. So let's unmute and just do our farewell, and then we can sign off, and I'll see you guys soon, but I'll reach out to you. In the meantime, Miss Sheridan, if you can give me a call, we can talk about that situation. And trying to put together some trips for the end of the year. There's always, maybe Cuba, if I can pull that off, I don't know. I might have to do that in 2024. But probably down to at least Alabama, because that trip we did 2018, 18, right before the pandemic, and it was hugely successful. So, but anyway, when Black women gather, thank you all for coming. And when Black women gather, what happens?
Amazing
things
happen. Right.
Thank you all for another amazing Sunday.
Have an amazing week.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your new apartment.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I wish you were here to help me pack, Miss
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Take good care of yourself,
bye-bye.
Helen. You've earned it.
Thank you. I get settled finally, right?
Helen, you have to send me their address.
I certainly will, girl. So you can send me my goodies or I'll
Yes.
come get them. Hey,
Oh, okay. Either or.